on the activity we did in class about self-disclosure?
It was hard to get the ball rolling at first. Like, first few post notes I handed out were just sort of like, here's a fun fact about me. And nothing, like, they were, like, I couldn't think of a good personal one, so I was just like, all right, here's just a fun fact.
Do you mean, when it's hard to get the ball rolling, do you mean question-wise or answer-wise?
Sort of both. Like, I realized, like, as, like, later on I got, or the more questions I'd asked and the more questions I answered, it was like, oh, yeah, here. While on the first one, I was like, oh, shit, what did I write down?
Did that, some extent, have to do with the fact that we've only been in class together for like a week and a half? And that the people you talked to at the beginning, maybe you didn't know very well?
Well,
yeah.
I actually started off with 2 people I knew pretty well.
Oh, really? And still there was something about so maybe, see, we're always trying to suss out, right? We're always trying to learn about interpersonal communication. So from this, so maybe what we're taking away from this is the fact that this, while we do it all the time, when you're asked to do it, it's not super intuitive, right? That when we need something, it's easy to ask questions, but just asking for the sake of self-disclosure is hard, right? Because we're not used to it. Jordan, what were you gonna say?
I just thought it was weird because like when I was talking to like these guys and they're actually my friends, I found it harder to
really
tell them anything than it was like a complete stranger.
Is that because? Yeah, go ahead.
I agree though because I had Sarah as my first partner. I've been friends with her since elementary school. I couldn't think of anything to tell her because she already knows everything about me.
Okay, here, fascinating. So there's something about those levels, right, of self-disclosure, and breaking down those levels. I think too a really important theme that's coming in some of the things that you're saying is this idea of timing. And the literature talks about it a little bit, but really when I've been talking to my friends about teaching the concepts in this class, they say the big key to self-disclosure is timing, right? When are you revealing, right? So because you've already done all of that, and now I'm putting you sort of in an arbitrary context to reveal, right? That timing isn't there, right? Because it's past or it's already happened. Or in your case, Jordan, I almost wonder if because you have a friendship and you have a way in which you discuss personal information, and standing in a weird theater during class and asking contrived questions isn't the way that you self-disclose with each other, that's, right? So the other piece of that is context. Right, that to have appropriate self-disclosure, that timing is really important, context is really important. I mean, I want you to notice, and I think we're going to play this game in like 3 more weeks to see if it's any different. Because, I mean, we didn't get super personal, and all of the research says that's good, right? Like, nobody asked super intense personal questions because we're all sort of still figuring each other out or kind of know each other, and even if we're friends, now we're in a different context of this class. Right, and so all the research says that absolutely, right? I'm not surprised, Goose, that not everybody answered your question, right? Right, if you're asking them, I mean, and that's about as personal as we got, right? Yeah? Thoughts? Thoughts on that?
I feel like it was easier for me to know how much to share when they asked me the questions, but once I had to write it down for myself, I didn't know like what level we were on.
Yeah.
But when they're asking me questions, I knew like how much they wanted to know about me, so I knew how much to share. But
are you saying, Autumn, right? Excellent. Autumn, are you saying that one of the things you're using to read self-disclosure is the other person's comfortability?
yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's super important, right? So the other person impacts that comfortability. I have been told, not only do I have a very, very high self-disclosure, so I self-disclose very quickly and a lot, but I have been told that I bring this out in other people. So I have so many examples of a couple stories. One time we went to a restaurant, we went to Spitfire, my partner and I, and we're at Spitfire, and this waitress is, we're discussing what to order, and I ordered sangria. And she says, oh, I love sangria. First time I ever had sangria was in Italy. I said, oh, really? I said, when did you go to Italy? She says, oh, I went on this trip through my college. I said, oh, which college did you go to? She says, Concordia. I said, oh, I teach there. She says, yeah, I went on this, it's called May semester. With, I said, oh yeah, I'm going on one next May. Which one did you go on? She says, oh, I went on one with Hank Kachuk and Don Rice. I said, oh, that's the one I'm running. That's the one I'm going on. So already within, 10 minutes of her being my waitress, we've already figured out we have mutual friends, mutual college in common, and we're gonna go on the same trip. So now we're sharing stories about Europe, right? And we're having this great experience. We took a selfie for the comm page so I could post it, right? Because I ran into this alumni, how exciting, whatever. And as we're leaving the restaurant, I said to Matthew, wasn't it great that we ran into her? Wasn't it great that we had that experience? And he says, yeah, but had we gone somewhere else, you would have done that with someone else. I said, but, and I started to get kind of defensive, am I like that? And he was like, yeah, yes you are, right? And I think people read that comfortability in me. I have another friend who, her name is long and beautiful, she's a poet. Mariah Talley is her last name. And Mariah Dessa, that's her middle. I was like, what's the middle part? Mariah Dessa Talley, and she is a poet out of New York. And when I was teaching at Concordia, the Women's Studies department brought her to campus. And they asked me, I'm not officially a part of the department, but I'm a friend of that department, and so they said, will you go pick her up and take her to dinner as a guest of the college? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I would love to go eat dinner with an artist and share our lives. Now, as you can assume, I have learned contextual boundaries to navigate some of these things, right? So I don't always, based on the other person's comfortability or how they act around me, I don't always share right away, or I try to mitigate my levels just like anybody else does. She comes, I'm at the Fargo airport, she comes, have you been to the Fargo airport, the escalator? So she's coming down the escalator, and she's a woman of color, has beautiful long hair, and is much shorter than me, and she walks to me, and we realize that we're each other, and she wraps her arms around me, presses her face to mine, and says, do you know there's a buffalo up there? And I was like, yeah, right? When I tell people the story, I said, she hugged me, they said, oh no, right? We went to dinner, I've never met this woman before, I've never spoken to this woman before. We spent all dinner at Wasabi, holding hands across the table, and telling each other our lives. I mean, personal things about our lives. Immediate bond, immediate self-disclosure because of the comfortability or the atmosphere of the other person. When she came back the next time, so I saw her, I think it was the second time I had ever been in her presence, right? We spent a couple days together and it was great. And then the second time I was ever in her presence, she'd had a lot of personal stuff happen, including getting pregnant. And there was a lot of things surrounding her and her partner conceiving. And as she's telling me this story about all the things that have happened, she kept saying, well, I don't always tell people this part, but I can tell you. But I can tell you. So we're at deep levels here, right? But keep in mind, I have met this woman twice, right? And that's the level we've already created. So, and how many of you have friends that either because of you or them, you've known them for years and still don't disclose personal information? Yeah, do you have an example or want to tell a story about that? What? You don't have, so this doesn't happen to you, right? Okay, Jordan, do you have an example?
My best friends from high school barely knows me.
And do you think that that's because of your choices, their choices, or both?
Mine.
Yeah,
They're big on sharing personal information. I'm not.
yeah. And you still consider one of them your best friends. There's still a relationship there. There's just a different level of self-disclosure. Do you see why I'm a little leery of, I think some of the readings on this and some of the tendencies on this is to put rules on this. Well, you can't share, right? Like you can't share too much right away, and you can't say this in work context, and you can't do this, blah, blah, blah. I mean, sure, I've gotten myself in trouble by violating these norms and boundaries, but I've also gained a lot sometimes by violating them, like my poet friend from New York, right? And so wherever that operation, I want to hit home that what's important is the timing and the context and the connection between the two people, right? Not a specific rule about how you have to do that this time, or you have to share so much here but not here, or that kind of thing. How many of you love this? How many of you are like, yeah, self-disclosure? I read the article about how it makes the brain feel good, and I was like, hell yeah. How many of you kind of feel like, yeah? Yeah. How many of you are like, why do we even have to do this? Yeah, can I see a hand? I'm a visual person. Can I see maybe just a nod or a hand? Like, why do we even have to do this? And how many of you are somewhere in the middle? Right? Like, some days, yeah. Some people, yeah. I think it's an important question. Why do we have to do this? Any ideas?
I think the question is more, why do we do this in class?
What do you mean?
Why don't people do this on their own? I can't remember in Holland that people have this sort of class.
Okay. So, well, I guess I'm asking, I can answer the class question. Like, the reason we have it in class is because it's a phenomenon to be studied. Right? And I think about your relationships. Do you self-disclose? Yeah, all the time. So why do we have to do this? Yeah.
It's a psychological aspect. We're kind of protecting ourselves while creating relationships with others.
Yeah, so you're kind of hitting it. Why don't we just stay private and never share anything with anyone?
You couldn't form a decent or strong relationship with them that way.
This is the start to relationship forming. Without self-disclosure, you don't have relationships. Self-disclosure and the sharing of that information is the basis for connecting and having relationships. Isn't that cool? I mean, now start to go through, right? Wherever you are on this, whatever level you are, on how you feel about self-disclosure, start to go through and think about how that connects to your relationships. One of my strongest relationships is my sister. Why?
You kind of have to have that personal relationship. It's just kind of how it works in the family you're in.
Yeah, and you certainly don't have to. I definitely know people who don't have strong relationships with their siblings, right? Right? And I'm excited to get into that, right? To talk about the differences in that. I one time was at a Bratfest in Madison, and I was with two of my friends from high school, and they were sharing stories about their sisters and about how difficult it was to have personal relationships with their sisters. And our sisters we're all the same age, but our sisters are different ages and sort of different personalities, and both of them have really struggled with finding and they've ebbed and flowed in that personal relationship with each of their sisters. So they were sort of lamenting this and sharing this, and I was listening politely. And I, you know, it was sort of obvious that I did not have a lot to contribute to the conversation. And then they sort of jokingly said to me, like, you can't play along because you have TIFF. I said, yep, right. And so I think there's definitely something specific about the people in the relationship. But one of the reasons TIFF is closer to me than some of my other friends is because there isn't even necessarily a need for self-disclosure because she was there for all of it. My mom, when she came to visit, she packed a bunch of these old photos that they had found at Thanksgiving in my grandfather's cedar chest. And looking at the baby pictures of my sister and I, we're like barely humans, and we're lumped on each other drooling, and we're like, in our little, 80s dresses, right? Like, that does something to self-disclosure or to a relationship, right? The things I have to tell other people about myself, I don't have to tell my sister because she was there, she's seen it, she knows me, right? And so there's a different relationship in that knowledge or experience. So I maybe should have, I'm gonna start this. Yay, bye.